You guys are so used to see gore and overall disgusting things that you don't even realize that horror doesn't need to be disgusting in order for a story to be considered horror. Welcome back, my gorgeous viewers and readers. I hope your weekend was filled with great walks around the park and eerie, terrifying creatures. As some of you may know, I was in Tallinn around 2 weeks ago, and obviously, as you can see in the pictures, Tallinn looks incredibly medieval, which was such a dream for me. And obviously, as someone who loves the art of performance or who is extremely extra, I decided to read his Black Tongue whilst during the trip because I wanted to get into the medieval vibe. And honestly, after reading the book and going to Goodreads just to see how this book performed in the public, I was shocked to see that this book only has 3.3 stars out of 5. Like, what kind of books are you reading that you think this is not terrifying enough? And also, people that said that wish the stories were connected, do you not see the connection within the stories? Like, what is going on? I am so surprised. Honestly, I am so shocked. And let me tell you why. This book is separated in 4 stories that introduce us to the fear of the unknown and the fear of evil throughout history, more specifically throughout the medieval period in different cultures. And the names of the stories are His Black Tongue, which is obviously the name, the title name of the book, The Bone Fields, The Knights of the Non-Euclidean Table, and the Necropolis. I will also like to mention that there is one last story that I would say that is actually the one that connects them all, but I will explain the last story in due time. The main story of the book is His Black Tongue, which is obviously the title of the book, and it is set in 14th century France, more or less, where 2 characters on their journey to Lourdes, which is a city in France, they stop in a very small town that is very heavily guarded and protected, just for a night or just to recharge and eat some food until they get to their destination. But the moment they get into the city, they realize that there is something very strange going on, and there is actually a horror inside that is haunting all the citizens. Rather than the Black Plague, there is something eerie and something terrifying that is making people go mad. The second story that we read is The Bone Fields, which is a story that is set around the Viking Age, around 9th to 10th century, more or less. We don't get a specific date, but I would say around that era. And we follow a group of Norsemen that is separated after a sea storm with their sibling ship, and they land in a very strange island that doesn't seem to be discovered beforehand. And when they land into this island, they find not only the sibling ship, but they also find that there is no one in those ships or no one in the island until they get into the island or into the midst of the jungle, and they realize that there is a very strange native population that is or that adores and worships a very strange hellish creature. The third story that we read is The Knights of the Non-Euclidean Table, and this story is as medieval as it gets because it is a dark, ominous take on the legend of King Arthur. We follow a bunch of knights that are trying to ward the world from evil and chaos after King Arthur, who was considered the chosen one or the holy one, has passed away. So we follow a group of knights that are trying their best to just eliminate all these evil and all this chaos that has reigned over England. Now, this last story, called The Necropolis, is a little bit strange because even though it is included in a book that focuses on medieval folklore, actually this story is set in the future. And the story follows a lone caretaker who is taking care of a massive orbiting sepulchre and whose routine is generally just straight up disrupted by a living visitor. And this visitor is nothing more than a child. Even though these stories seem to have no connection with each other, I actually 100% believe that these stories are connected, especially if you read the last story of the book called The Blessed Tomb, where 2 individuals from the future arrive to a very strange and unoccupied planet only to find out that they are being hunted by a monstrous, hellish creature that wants to kill them. What these stories have in common is the fact that there is always an underlying evil that is causing as much destruction and chaos as possible, right? We see it in all 5 stories, even in the last one. And this is very telling of how we view evil or evilness as a society or as a species, right? This is exactly what the connection is in these stories. And is the fact that across cultures, across time, and across history, we always see evil the same way. We see it as something that we cannot control, as something that we can just keep delaying, but also at the same time as a way, like as something that is inherent in nature, right? It's something that is ominous, that is monstrous, and that is always causing harm, specifically as much harm as possible. And we see this across culture, but we also see how fragile human nature actually is. Let me elaborate. For example, if we take the first story, His Black Tongue, we see how there is a lot of Christian imagery when it comes to evilness, right? We see all this demonology, or how the evil creature looks like a demon, or like the classical representation of a demon, but also we see how evilness is also represented in the historical folklorian imagery, right? For example, the black goat. We see it in a lot of different subgenres of Christianity, I would say like that, and also in some other folklore cultures, like for example in the Basque Country, we have the figure of the Akkerbelts. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I'm not Basque, so I hope I'm not butchering it. But yeah, we also see the figure of the black goat. And in other stories, for example, in the second story, which is the Bone Fields, we see how the figure of the serpent represents evil, right? We see it in Norse mythology with Jormungandr. We see it with Leviathan, for example, or Apep in Egyptian mythology, or EU Yankas. I hope I am pronouncing it correctly as well. But yeah, there are so many figures or so many types of evil gods that are represented by the serpent, right? And this is why I think there is such, like, this book is such a good representation of evilness. And that's why I think that all stories are connected in this book, because it represents the true figure of evil. Same thing with the third story, the Knight of the Non-Euclidean Table. We see how this evil knight is represented with the usual colors of evilness, right? Which is black. We also see how death, rotten meat, and disgusting smells are presented to show that this character is evil. Same thing as the fourth story, which is the Necropolis. We see how death is presented as something evil, right? And this is why I say that this book is, like, these stories are very heavily connected, because the main point of the stories are evil and how we represent it and how we view evil. Another thing that I would love to add about this book is the fact that even though it is focused on medieval horror or medieval folklore, actually the creatures that we see in this story, or the sources of evil, are very much Lovecraftian, right? More specifically, in the last story, in The Blessed Tomb, the creature that I see in my head is this Lovecraftian Eldritch horror that I won't even try to pronounce the name because I'm gonna get a stroke. But yeah, I see this creature in the last story, or in all stories. I see the influences Lovecraft has in the author, which honestly I love, because I love Lovecraft. He is just that guy, right? But yeah, I would say that this also very well represents, or at least to me, it represents how evil actually is, or how darkness, destruction, and chaos, all these gods of evil, actually look like in real life, or would look like in real life. And this is one of the main theories of horror, or at least horror as a genre, and it's the fact that evil as a one entity is infinite, omnipotent, and is all powerful, right? And it's something that has always existed, will always exist, and will always be there to haunt us, right? To haunt us as humans. Because at the end of the day, if we look into anthropology, for example, or into psychology, we see that there are a lot of theories that mention that humanity, as long as we have had a mindset, or we have had a psyche and conscious, we have done evil things. Not because we are human, or because we are animals, but because we have given a morality to things, right? We say that things are good or bad. They almost are never neutral. They are always on either side. So therefore, because we do good things, we also do bad things, right? So therefore, in this sense, when it comes to the horror genre, we say that this evil is actually the one that makes us do these evil things, right? And is the one that possesses us to create chaos and destruction. And I genuinely think that not only this is fascinating, but this is also terrifying. If we actually deepen in, right, and we go into full horror lore, especially when it comes to Lovecraft, for example, we see that he was really good at understanding, or trying to make the readers understand where this evil comes from, right? Or just make them understand that this is something that is infinite. It is as infinite as the universe, right? So if you like, how I view these evil creatures or these stories is the fact that all these evil creatures are they are as old as the universe. They can control time, because we see throughout time that this evil still exists, or this evil is still there. But also they are extremely powerful, to the point of we can't really control them. We can't do anything about it. They just exist, and we just need to leave them be, right? Because we can't mess with them. And in this sense, this is what makes this book actually so terrifying, right? That it's the fact that no matter the shape, the form, or the way this evil creature looks like, or what they do, they will still be here, and they will still haunt us as humans. They will still cause chaos, destruction, for no reason that we know of, right? They just do. They don't really care about the reason why. It's in their nature to be evil, because they are evil. Maybe I am right, or maybe I am the one that is tweaking and trying to find connections when actually there is none. But one thing I am for sure, and it's the fact that this is not a maze. This book perfectly combines what is cosmic Lovecraftian horror with medieval folklore, which in any way, shape, or form, I would think that this could be possible. But actually, Mitchell Luthi actually does it, and does it really well. And I would beg you guys to read this book. If you either love fantasy, or medieval horror, or you love Lovecraft, please read the book. This is not a miss. This book is incredible. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have read his Black Tongue, I would love to know your opinion about it. Please make sure that you put it down in the comments, or you can follow me on my social media and we can discuss. We can go like deep into the ends of a horror theory. I would love to do that. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.